All right, well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Aaron Moss, a senior research scientist at CloudResearch and a lecturer of psychology at Siena University. I'm also joined by Leib Litman, who's the chief research officer at CloudResearch and a professor of psychology at Touro University. Together, Leib and I have about 30 years of teaching experience, and as you can see from the title, today we want to tell you how to make research methods your students' favorite class. And we want to do that specifically by introducing you to a textbook that we've written called Research in the Cloud, An Introduction to Modern Methods of Behavioral Science. So this is a book that we've been hard at work on for well over a year. And two things that we want you to know about it up front are that it's being published by Cambridge University Press, and it's a completely free open access textbook. So the plan for today is that I am going to speak for about 20 minutes, telling you what's in this book, how to teach with it, and sharing some of the resources we've created to help teachers adopt the text. Then we have another 20 minutes or so set aside for a question and answer session. During that time, Leib and I are going to be happy to answer questions you have about adopting this book, how students have responded in courses that have been taught with it so far, and really anything else you want to know. Finally, as we move through the webinar today, we're going to share a complete link to the book with you, an example syllabus, and some other resources that we've developed. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. This book really has three primary goals. First, we wanted to offer a comprehensive textbook for teaching research methods. Second, we wanted to make learning about research methods both active and project-oriented. And then finally, wanted to give people a guide to using the modern tools that are common today in online research. As we go through the webinar, I'll talk about how the book meets each of these different goals. But right now, we're actually going to go ahead and give you the link to the book. This is a complete preview link. Of course, in the future, there will be a copy online that's available from Cambridge, but while they work through the production process, the link that we're sharing is a ready-to-go version of the book. And in the preface, you'll see there's an overview of some of the book's structure, as well as the resources and other things that I'm going to be talking about. So first goal is to offer a comprehensive textbook for research methods. Here's the table of contents from the book. And this book is broken into two parts. Part 1 has everything a student would need to know in an introduction to behavioral research. And then Part 2 provides a guide to conducting online research. As you can see, Part 1 begins with an introduction to the scientific study of people and human behavior. Then there are chapters about things like descriptive research. We go through measurement. The book covers correlational designs and has an advanced discussion about causal inference. In the chapter on experimental research, the book covers everything from simple two-cell designs to repeated measures experiments and factorial designs. Finally, Part 1 ends with a really unique chapter on how to use AI tools to conduct qualitative and mixed methods research. Now, in writing these chapters, we really spent a lot of time and effort to ensure that the writing was clear, that it was engaging, and that it was structured to build students' knowledge gradually. We carefully picked our examples, we developed many engaging graphics and illustrations, and we overall just did our best to make this something students would actually want to learn about, something they would actually want to read. As a result of all this hard work, we were extremely gratified when someone we know who was using this book in their course shared with us what they swear is some unsolicited student feedback. So this person assigned students to read the first chapter, and they said the day afterwards, a student reached out in an email and said, "I really enjoyed reading this book. It sounded like someone was talking to me and teaching me instead of most textbooks that are incomprehensible." So without necessarily the dig at other textbooks that are out there, we were extremely pleased to see that students noticed there was something different about this book, that it sounded different and it sounded like someone who wanted to teach them. So to help teachers adopt this text for the methods courses, we've developed many different resources, and we're creating a website where you're going to be able to download all these different resources. So in the chat right now, you can find an example syllabus. We also have outlines for each class, PowerPoint slides. We have example exams and an entire video series that complements the material in the book. I'll talk a little bit more about that video series in just a minute. All of the materials were developed with feedback from many people who taught with a preliminary version of this textbook. And so, like some of the other activities and examples that we'll get into in a few minutes, we're confident these things will work for you in your class. So that's the first goal, offering a comprehensive textbook for research methods. The second goal is to make learning about research methods both active and project-oriented. So we realize that no matter how well written a textbook is, writing alone will not make a course like research methods your students' favorite subjects. And research methods often faces a couple of additional challenges. First, students must learn many abstract concepts. These can often feel dry and disconnected from the practical, real-world things that maybe interested students in a discipline like psychology or behavioral science in the first place. A second challenge is that there are often few opportunities for students to practice or apply the things that they learn. Many research activities are best learned with repeated practice over time, and it's difficult in a single semester to give students that full research experience. So how can we make this course both more active and connected to the practical things that students care about? Well, for us, a large part of the answer lied in realizing that what used to take an entire semester, planning a study, creating measures, collecting data, and then analyzing it, can now actually all be accomplished in a single class session. And because so many research tools today are more accessible than they were in the past, we believe the best way to teach students research methods is to have them actively involved doing research throughout the semester. In fact, our goal with this book is to totally transform research methods from a class where you're telling students about research to one where you're enabling and showing them how to actually do that research. And that should begin on the first day of class. So each chapter follows a carefully scaffolded 4-step learning progression. First, you introduce a concept like measurement or correlation. Then students read about an example application, or they immediately start working with a real data set to see that concept in action. Let me give you a specific example. In chapter 4, when the book introduces measurement, we give students a data set that has responses from 500 participants that was gathered specifically for this book. In this data set, participants have responded to measures like anxiety, depression, and trauma. And as students are learning about measurement, they actually go in and calculate things like Chromebox alphas. Then later in the chapter on correlational research, which comes right after measurement, students use that same data set to calculate the correlation between measures like anxiety and depression. So after introducing a concept and showing students examples and real-world applications, the third step is that students engage with a complete guided research project. Each of these projects comes with pre-built survey materials and a data set. Finally, after working through an example project, students are empowered to then design and conduct their own original research studies. This process builds student skills incrementally, and it helps make each concept more tangible. It's also important to emphasize, however, that this structure is very flexible. You can use the book as a traditional textbook and ignore or forego all these hands-on activities entirely. You can introduce data analysis without actually having students collect their own data, or you can mix and match, asking students to engage in a guided project in one chapter and then to create and conduct their own research studies in another chapter. So to give you a better idea of what these guided projects look like, let's look at an example. So one example that the book uses repeatedly to illustrate different research designs across chapters is the classic Heinz dilemma. You might remember this from the work of Lawrence Kohlberg in developmental psychology, but people are presented with a moral dilemma in which a man named Heinz is trying to obtain a drug for his wife who's sick and dying. Heinz can't afford the drug, so he breaks into a pharmacy and he steals it. People are then asked whether the behavior is morally acceptable and whether Heinz should have stolen the drug or not. The first time students encounter this dilemma is in the context of descriptive research. The chapter explains what descriptive research is, then it gives them some engaging examples, and then it walks students through this guided project. In our experience, this is a great class. Right away, students are interested in this dilemma. They're talking about what they think is the right course of action, and often they're very surprised to learn that other students see the situation differently than they do. Then, after students are already interested in the topic, the book shows them how to work in Qualtrics to set up the study. Even though this activity is very simple, to students, it's often very engaging. Just last week, someone who's teaching with this book assigned their students this activity, and the student reached out with an email to say, "Dear Professor, I'm currently in the middle of using Qualtrics to make the survey for the Heinz Dilemma. Thank God everything's been going well so far, but honestly, it's pretty cool to be on this side of things." Throughout the book, all the example projects are demonstrated in Qualtrics, and they come with QSF files that students can upload directly into Qualtrics. However, if you don't have access to Qualtrics at your university, CloudResearch has a survey tool that is free to use with this book, and it's 100% compatible with all the QSF files and Qualtrics projects. Finally, after students program the survey, they then learn how they would gather data for a descriptive research project. Instead of actually collecting the data, though, the chapter gives them a data set that has responses from 100 people matched to the US Census. Students then learn how to analyze that data and to find out what people think, and they learn how to do things like create a figure that looks like this. So as you can see, this kind of guided research gets students active. It allows them to apply the things that they're learning, and it allows the teacher to talk about all kinds of concepts like statistics, distributions, and how to describe behavior. But here's where things actually get really fun. After students work through a guided project, the book asks them to come up with their own ideas for a descriptive project. They've already been thinking about the Heinz Dilemma, and so the book asks them to modify that scenario in some way. And it tells them they're actually in a competition with all the other students in the class. After everyone thinks of their own descriptive research question, the class then votes on the best idea and then gathers data from 100 more people online and analyzes the results together. To give you an idea of some of the things that students have been interested in the past, they've run studies asking, what if Heinz was stealing this drug not to save his wife, but to save his pet dog? What if the drug was for his 11-year-old son? Or what if Heinz's wife was pregnant? Some classes have asked, what if the drug didn't save Heinz's wife's life, but it only prolonged her life by a couple of months? Even though these questions are all asked in the context of descriptive research, you can see how this activity foreshadows experimental research. Later in the semester, a lot of students often come back to this example, and they create very interesting studies that build on the Heinz Dilemma. And then they actually run experiments using things like random assignment and the other things needed to make equal comparisons across conditions. And over throughout the book, this is exactly what we want. We want students to use the guided projects as a springboard for their own ideas, which are often fun, insightful, and interesting, and they help keep students much more involved with the content than they might otherwise be. So across the different chapters in the book, there are numerous data sets that have responses from more than 2,500 real participants that were gathered online. The topics in these different guided projects range from the Heinz Dilemma, which we just talked about, to things like the Big Five and different personality measures. There are clinical outcomes like anxiety, depression, and trauma. There's a study that involves the moral foundations theory, and there's a longitudinal data set with anxiety and depression scores from the same participants over the course of a 1-year period. Each activity and guided project comes with Qualtrics files, a QSF file, and ready-to-use SPSS datasets. If you're not using Qualtrics or SPSS, there are also other versions of these files that students can open in any program that you are using. All of the materials and files for each project are stored on the Open Science Framework, where there are folders for each chapter, and this allows you to introduce students to the idea of sharing research and data and open science. So in addition to the data sets and the materials that go along with each project, I mentioned earlier that we've created a complete video series that guides students through each activity. We found this video series is incredibly helpful for simple things like showing students how to download and upload a file. And it's also incredibly helpful for the big things like guiding them through a statistical analysis. The book also contains a portfolio structure that helps teachers measure and evaluate how well students are learning these different concepts. And I'll give you a look at both the video and this portfolio structure. So here I'm going to play maybe 20 seconds of this video. It comes from chapter 5, where students are calculating the correlation between measures of anxiety and depression. And the idea is just to give you a look at how these videos sound and how they appear to participants or to students.
Welcome back to the Research in the Cloud video series. In this video, we'll learn how to run a correlation analysis to examine the relationship between anxiety and depression scores. We'll also create a scatter plot to visualize this relationship. First, make sure you have your data set open with both the anxiety and depression variables.
All right, so as I said, just kind of a quick look at how these videos appear and how they sound. And you can see that we actually guide students step by step through different things in SPSS. These are helpful because students can move at their own pace, they can return to different things, and they can ensure that they understand the analyses they're conducting.
See column.
Also, throughout the course, students build a cumulative portfolio of their work. Anytime they engage in these activities or a guided study, they can add things like hypotheses, any output they get from their analyses, any figures that they create, and their thoughts and interpretations about the data to this research portfolio. As I said, this creates a simple way for teachers to assess whether students understand and participated in each project, but it also helps students create a tangible record of the knowledge and skills that they're learning throughout the course. All right, and so finally, let's turn to the third goal, which is of this book, which is to give people a comprehensive guide to using the modern tools that are common in online research. Here again is the table of contents. You can see that after students learn about the fundamentals of behavioral methods in part 1, part 2 guides people through conducting online research studies. And this section is completely unique for a research methods textbook. For the first time, there's an easily accessible guide that actually teaches people how to conduct online studies. You can see in part 2, first, the book teaches people about the options for where to gather data from online participants. In this chapter on understanding online participant platforms, the book describes over 500 different sources of participants, along with their strengths and their limitations, and the kinds of projects that are best suited or best fit for each platform. It also then walks through questions like, how can I find a specific group of minority participants who live in a state like Texas? Then the book actually takes people through the best practices for sampling that group of participants. You can see that after understanding the sources of online participants, there are 3 chapters devoted to data quality. These chapters not only explain what some of the problems are with data quality in online research, but they offer comprehensive solutions for achieving high data quality. Then the book has best practices for designing online surveys and experiments. It shows the best practices for setting up and launching online studies. In the chapter on ethics, there's guidance and examples of writing IRB applications specifically for online research. And part 2 ends with advice on writing research reports. In addition to the content that's covered, another thing that makes this section unique is that it's informative for everyone from advanced undergraduate students who might be working on a capstone or a thesis project, all the way to full professors or research professionals who want to learn more about how online research operates. This part of the book distills many of the ideas that we published in scientific journal articles over the last 10 to 15 years into examples and stories and concepts that are simple enough to be presented in a textbook. In many areas, we synthesize some of our own research that's been published in places like Psychological Science, along with other research published by others on how to do all of these things like design surveys and collect data in the best way possible. To give you just one more example, in Chapter 10 on data quality, you can see an outline here that we actually explain to people about this global network of survey fraud that presents a threat to online research. And then we walk through how sources of low quality data can distort the findings from descriptive, correlational, and experimental research using real world examples. After that, the next chapter offers a unique perspective on how to measure data quality and protect online studies. So overall, this book offers a complete open access textbook for teaching research methods. Within each chapter, there are activities and assignments that have been specifically designed to engage students and allow them to practice the things that they're learning. And because these activities have been tested across several courses already, We're confident they'll work for you and your students. But we're also excited to put this content into the hands of great teachers and see what kinds of activities and ideas they come up with as well. Finally, part 2 of this book offers a guide to conducting online research that everyone can read and use and benefit from. So if this material sounds exciting to you, we want to help you adopt this book for your classroom. And we hope that you find research methods isn't just your students' favorite class, but your favorite class to teach as well. As we wrap up here, we'll move to the question and answer session. At the end, we'll send out a survey that's very short. We're just looking for people's feedback about the book, and it takes less than 5 minutes or so to complete. But with that, we can transition to a question and answer session. You can feel free to unmute yourself and answer a question, or to put questions into the chat. We'll get to each of them in order here. I see that it looks like there's some content already in the chat. So it looks like one person asked, is the narration on the course video a human voice or is it machine generated? So we used an AI narrator. I can tell you it seemed much better than having me do the narration of the videos. And like I said, if you have a question, you can feel free to raise your hand or to unmute your mic. I'm happy to bring in Leib as well to answer some of these questions. So someone asked, how can we get the book? So if you scroll up in the chat, someone on our team provided a link to a PDF, which is a complete version of the textbook. Later, Cambridge, after they work through the production process, there will be a link that's available on their website. But for now, this version of the book is made available to people. And so another question is, someone asked, is this book designed for undergraduate students or for graduate students? We think that the answer is both. So the part 1, the fundamentals of behavioral research, it covers topics in enough depth that you could use it in a graduate student research methods class, and you can mix in some of the chapters from part 2. As I was just talking about there at the end, part 2 really is a guide to online research that can be beneficial from everyone from students who understand the fundamentals of research and are looking to apply that in research projects, all the way up to people who are professional researchers who are just looking to learn more about how online research operates. So we think this book is really suitable for both undergraduate and graduate students, and just kind of depends on how you want to use it and the things that you want to introduce them to. I see a question from Matt Hayes that says, you mentioned instructions for how to adopt the textbook. Can you explain a little bit more? I'm not sure exactly what your question is referring to there. Do you want to say some more about that, Matt, or maybe unmute yourself and we can chat back and forth?
So more of a question. You mentioned that Cambridge is going to publish it later. Like, if I decide to opt or adopt now, like, would it become a paid book later, or would, like, the methods that I would get it to students, like, say I wanted to use it in the spring versus later semesters? That's kind of what I'm asking about.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, the book is not going to change from open access to paid. Once Cambridge publishes it, it'll still be an open access book. It takes a long time to go through the production and get it up on their website. So in the meantime, we've made this preview available, but it is the complete book. So you can use it later on after they're done with that, and it looks everything with their typeset and all that stuff. There's going to be no change in kind of how you access the book. So yeah, it's available now. There's people who are teaching courses this fall with it. As I mentioned, some people have taught with preliminary versions, and there are people who are already planning to use it for the spring as well. So with that access link that we provided, you can take a look at the book and start looking for ways that you might want to incorporate it into your class. Looks like Emily asks whether the examples and everything are in SPSS, or if there are guides for using Excel and R and other programs. The video series has it shows students how to use things, how to do these analyses in SPSS. We find that's still one of the most commonly used programs across kind of different behavioral science disciplines. but we also have guides that, not in the videos, but guides that give students instruction. So in the book, there are these boxes that give them, we call them how-to boxes, and they guide students how to do these different analyses. And we have guides that are suitable for other stats packages as well. We know that people are using a variety of different stats packages today, and so we have guides that go beyond SPSS. Justin asks, how suitable are the book chapters for picking and choosing for a specific course? Does the part 2 content depend on the part 1 content? The answer is I don't think so. The book is really flexible. You can use it for multiple different purposes. So we talked about in undergraduate methods courses or in a graduate course. I can see part 2 being useful for students who are entering a PhD program. Maybe they've taken a research methods class before, but in the lab, you really want to introduce them to the particulars of online research, understanding the sources of participants, the problems with data quality. And we've also talked to people who are teaching a statistics class, and they just want to use these videos and some of the guided projects because they're high quality examples that really guide students through a number of different analyses, and they give them something fun and engaging to do. So I think this content is really flexible. It can be used in lots of different ways, and you don't have to necessarily have read part 1 to understand part 2. Part 2 is a lot more about applying the fundamentals of behavioral research in online studies. So someone asked, how do I get access to the videos? So we have put each of these videos that we've created on our YouTube channel, and then we actually have specific links to them in the book. So if you go through, there are links that you can just click right on, and that will open up the videos. Yeah, so it looks like someone else asks, I'm glad that it has a section on using AI in the analysis. Which AI are you referring to? And then it, so we use AI in a number of different ways throughout the book. In the measurement chapter, there are some activities that show students how to create their own measure, and they use AI to do that. We're kind of agnostic to which large language model that they use. Where I mentioned in chapter 8, where we talk about mixed methods and qualitative research, that uses the survey tool that I mentioned that CloudResearch has developed. So we have a survey tool that's called Engage, and it is useful for gathering qualitative and mixed methods research. And that chapter shows students how they could do that and how to analyze and make sense of open-ended data. Yeah, so another question is, are those applications of AI-based tools clearly disclosed throughout the book? The answer is yes. Every time that we ask students to use AI to do something, we let them know. And the goal is really to teach and, sort of, I think, a proper context, how it can be useful. So in that section where we ask students to create a measurement tool, we really talk a lot about the importance of prompting the AI the right way to get an initial batch of questions, and then how you can go back and ask it to help refine those questions. There's a lot in there about proper question structure and development. But yeah, it's very clearly disclosed. People know that the activity involves using AI. Oh, sorry, hang on, I lost the chat. Another question is, which AI tool did you use in doing the thematic analysis? So it's actually a much larger conversation and presentation, but our system, our survey tool, has been built to do that sort of thematic analysis. And so we'd be happy to talk a lot more about that tool, show you how it works, show you example publications and all kinds of other things. But CloudResearch has developed our own tool for doing this kind of for our own survey tool where you can run quantitative and mixed methods research projects. All right, well, if folks have any other questions, I'm happy to stick around for a couple of minutes. I don't see, oh, there's another one in the chat here. Let's see. Oh, someone asked how I can, thanks for reposting that. Someone asks, how can I access the PowerPoint slides for the book chapters? So in the survey that we're about to send around, you can just express that you have interest in that, and we'll share the slides with you. We have slides for each chapter created. Eventually, as I mentioned, we'll have all these resources compiled on a website where they can all be directly downloaded. But if you just express and share your interest with us, we'll share the slides with you. And it looks like there's a link to the survey there as well. So it's very short, just 5 minutes or so, asking people for feedback and impressions about the book. Oh, that's great. It looks like someone mentioned that there are some things in the chapters about data quality and data quality solutions that are useful even for them. So that's great. That's great for us to hear. And yeah, looks like Florencio has a question about Engage doing grounded theory analysis.
Yeah, Aaron, can I?
Go ahead. Yep.
So the short answer is yes, and the longer answer, if you have any more specific questions about that, we're always happy to set up a demo and to show you how it works. But yeah, it's meant to do grounded research and also more top-down type of thematic analysis.
Yeah, I think a demo would be fantastic in this case. We've been using it in lots of different research projects, and we'd be happy to answer all the questions you have about it.
You could just send an email directly to anyone on our team and request a demo. If you want, you could just send an email to me, leib.litman@cloudresearch.com. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, or the
Just
support
send an
link.
email to Teresa. Support. Yep. Okay.
All right, great. Well, it looks like we have a couple more minutes. If people have any other questions, we're happy to answer those. But thank you for attending, everyone, and please feel free to give us any feedback you have in the survey or to reach out to us. We're happy to talk more about the book and how it can be useful for you and your students.